What's good, Knights? Gonna Gaming here, and today we will be looking back at a game that brought a survival horror classic from 1998 to the modern era. That game is Resident Evil 2, which was not only remade from the ground up as a faithful love letter to fans of the original game, but also brought in a new audience of players like myself. The Resident Evil 2 remake was my entry into this beautiful franchise as I played it for the first time at the beginning of 2023. Since then, I've played the remakes for 3 and 4, as well as Resident Evil 7, and I'm looking forward to visiting the other titles in the future. It's safe to say that I'm not exactly a franchise veteran, but so far it's been an experience that I've loved, and it all started right here. Before we dive deep into this remake, I want to reflect on how we got to this point of Capcom deciding to remake Resident Evil 2 and subsequently the succeeding title. In 2002, Capcom remade the original Resident Evil game from 1996 for next generation consoles like the GameCube, and the results were absolutely stunning and to this day look very impressive. Soon after, Capcom was interested in giving Resident Evil 2 the same treatment, but during this time, Shinji Mikami, the creator of Resident Evil, wanted all hands focused on the upcoming Resident Evil 4.
Bingo?
The idea for an RE2 remake would be shelved until 13 years later in 2015 when development began, and it was announced to the world that fans would finally be getting the long-awaited remake in a hilarious video where producer Yoshiaki Hirabayashi donned a shirt with the phrase, "We do it."
We do it.
Finally, RE2 Remake was released on January 25th, 2019 and was incredibly successful. As of March 2024, the game has sold 13.9 million copies. It was the second game to run on the relatively new RE engine after Resident Evil 7 in 2017, and it looks beautiful. After Resident Evil 7 brought the series back from the dead, this remake rejoiced new and old fans and kicked the hype train back into motion for this franchise. I should give a disclaimer before we head any further and say that I have not played the original Resident Evil 2 yet. Trust me, I wanted to, but currently there's no easy way for me to get my hands on it. The OG Resident Evil 2 and 3 will be released later this year at an unspecified date, so if you guys end up enjoying the video, I would be more than happy revisiting this topic and playing the OG, maybe on a stream or making a video of how it compares to the remake in my eyes. But for right now, instead of mostly judging this game as a remake, I'm going to judge it for the most part as a game. So, what about this game made me fall in love with this franchise? Let's find out. In Resident Evil 2, you step into the shoes of Claire Redfield and Leon Kennedy as you navigate through this immersive play area beautifully stitched together. Whoever you decide to play as, both characters start their journey visiting a gas station while entering Raccoon City. It's dark and stormy outside, and there's some fishy activity going on at this gas station, with strange noises accompanied by a pathway made of blood. The inside is powerless, leaving your character to use a flashlight as you see an injured man lying against a wall. Upon further investigation, you find a cop struggling to detain a citizen, but as the cop tells you to stay away, he's shoved onto the floor and weeps as a chunk of flesh is ripped from his neck. The zombie figure looks up and decides that you're next. At this point, when I played the game for the first time, I instantly knew I was in for something unique. The game throws you into this small area and lets you get a sense of the controls and sets the tone for the game. The slow build up to the reveal of the first zombie is special as you get a little taste of everything to come. The atmosphere, the beautiful graphics, and the outstanding utilization of lighting. We get to figure out the inventory system quickly, as well as the gunplay. They let you know that these zombies aren't going down so easy, and you better ingrain that into your skull quickly. Eventually, the two characters meet and travel further into Raccoon City, where they're forced to split up. This is where we get to enter the iconic Raccoon Police Department. Before discussing the story, let's dive into the core gameplay and what makes it so special. Every single thing that you do in Resident Evil 2 is a choice. Every step you take, every corner you turn, every item you pick up, every bullet that you fire, every single action you take, no matter how large or minuscule, is a decision that could benefit you or act as an absolute detriment. Let's say that a zombie is blocking your path. Do you want to shoot it until it's incapacitated or stun it briefly so you can swiftly evade it? Let's say you shot it in the head repeatedly. Great job, the zombie is down, but you enter another room with an essential item you need only to see more zombies in your path, and then you realize that you just wasted your ammo on one zombie. Maybe you found an item essential to progress, but realize that you're out of inventory space. You could run back to find a safe room to store these items, but that could take a while. Instead, you discard an item in your inventory, but which one? Do you want to discard a knife that can provide easy escapes from the undead, or do you want to surrender your healing items? make your choice, but I guarantee that after you do, you pray to God that it's the right one. This isn't a run and gun zombie simulator where you can carelessly traverse the halls of the police station. This game forces you to stay on your toes and think critically before you take action. It requires strategy, patience, and humility. Whenever I died in this game, most of the time I felt it was my fault and that I could have done better. Oh, and did you choose to save your game at a proper time? Be careful or you might just lose significant progress. The zombies aren't what kill you in this game. It's your arrogance, your ignorance, and your hubris that does the job. It's not all torture though, as while scavenging the map, you find many items that can aid you against the undead. You can find different colored herbs that can heal you or cure poison. You can also combine these items to give you other effects, but if you want to skip out on the agriculture, you can just resort to basic healing items such as your first aid spray. It's better to use these items when you need them the most, because if you decide to pop them every time you take damage, you'll be in for a long game. You can find multiple knives throughout the area that can be used as a last resort if you want to hack and slash through zombies, but it can also be used as a get out of jail free card. If you have a knife in your inventory, the game allows you to sacrifice it to escape when a zombie catches you by surprise. There are even more items that can bail you out of a bad situation, like flash and hand grenades. Just plop one of those bad boys in a zombie's mouth and run away. Or if you don't want to wait for a moment of desperation, you can chuck these items at whatever is standing in your way. All of these items offer great versatility but are limited in each area, so you have to be wise about when to use them. Aside from the secondary items, you'll come across a large selection of firearms in both characters' playthroughs. You'll notice that Claire certainly gets the more heavy artillery of the two, with more explosive and grand weapons, such as the grenade launcher and spark shot. She also gains access to an automatic weapon, unlike Leon, who deals with more tame and semi-auto weapons. I assume that this decision is a storytelling one to explain how Claire can also deal with more monstrous foes since Leon is a trained police officer, but she's also the sister of Chris Boulder punching Redfield, so I have no doubts about her skill. Every weapon in this game is helpful. Some may not be effective against certain enemies, but it's all about how you utilize your firearms. Along the way, you can also find various attachments to upgrade your weapons and give you the edge that you need. What's great is that the game doesn't force you to use these weapons, so if you want to spice things up and stick with a starting pistol, you can do that. I'll say that even though it's fun to blow up enemies as Claire, it's also nice to get up close and personal as you blow zombies' heads off with a shotgun while you maneuver through the RPD as Leon. Am I sounding like a psychopath right now? The point is that every gun has its uses and offers much variety. It's also a nice change of pace with a new set of challenges as you learn how to operate through the map on a second playthrough with a whole new arsenal. Of course, with all this firepower, you'll need multiple things to shoot at, but don't worry because there are many different enemy types. Let's start with the basic zombies, as they are the ones you'll encounter the most. The undead can be a hard crowd to shoot at due to their unpredictable movements, as they typically sway in many directions while pursuing you. At certain points, they can have random bursts of speed and lunge after you, making your interactions with them all the more terrifying, as you can never really get an idea of how they'll react. There will be occasions where you have to deal with more than one, but you can never be too careful, as they are quite resilient. Even if you think a zombie is down for good, it's best not to keep your back turned on these foes for too long, as you just might get a chunk taken out of it. I know many people complain that they feel like bullet sponges, as it takes quite a few rounds to put them down, but I've never really had a problem with that. It wouldn't be amusing if you could just one-shot every zombie in the face. Plus, I believe that this game cleverly deals with the number of zombies present. They don't just respawn endlessly over and over again. Instead, there's a set amount inside of an area. When you incapacitate a zombie, they'll lay in the same spot until you come across them later on and deal with them once more. So the majority of zombies that you deal with will constantly be a threat, even if you have stopped them for just a moment. Of course, you can kill them by eventually blowing their head off, but it will take a good amount of time. So it's best to just stop them for the moment and carry on. What's also a fantastic detail is that whatever enemy you kill, their corpse will stay in the same spot for the entirety of the game. I'm not kidding. They will not despawn and stay exactly how you left them all game long. Next, we have the Lickers, who could be considered the most terrifying enemy in the game. These freakish looking creatures grapple onto walls and ceilings and are incredibly fast. They require a lot of firepower to kill and look horrific as they sprawl out like a spider and have an exposed brain, leaving only their deadly mouth visible. They have a tongue that can reach far distances and latch onto you as you try to escape, so you're probably wondering, how the fuck am I supposed to beat this thing? The creature uses sound to detect its prey, so you have to maneuver around them slowly so you don't make a sound. It sounds simple enough, but it can be challenging if you're actively trying to escape another hostile. Of course, you could try to put a permanent end to it, but I suggest you work on your reflexes because you'll be turned into a delicious meal before you know it. Then we have the Cerberus dogs. As if dealing with zombies and mutated abominations weren't bad enough, you'll eventually come across these zombie canines. These dogs don't take a lot of bullets to kill, but good luck trying to land a shot as they have absurd speed and prance around you as you try to put your crosshairs on them. You won't encounter many of them in the story, but they are an absolute annoyance when you do. God damn it, stay still. Shoot the thing, Leon. God damn it. Unlike regular zombies, running away isn't much of an option because they will always catch up to take a chunk out of you, so you might as well fight. Next, there's G-monsters. These giant mutated enemies look like a deformed amalgamation of your darkest nightmares. They lurk deep in the sewers and spring up on you from underwater when you least expect it. These grotesque creatures are incredibly dangerous because instead of dealing basic damage, they douse you with poison, leaving you to scramble around the dark tunnels to find a blue herb so that you can be cured. They're slow, but take a hefty amount of damage to put down. Underneath their skin, you can find an enlarged eyeball to shoot at, and they can be quickly taken care of with high-powered weapons. But if you don't have any at your disposal, get ready to use a ton of ammo. Finally, we have the Plant 43 zombies, which are only present in the game's final act. You do not want to be anywhere near these creatures while fighting them. They may seem like overgrown zombies, but you will instantly die if caught in their grasp without any tools to escape. Every single time. There are spores you can shoot to stop them for a brief period, but the only way to keep them down for good is by reducing them to ash with a flamethrower. Although people may hate that they are instant kills, I feel like the plant zombies are the true test of patience and resolve. It only takes one slip up to lose a lot of progress. Finally, and most importantly, the biggest, most terrifying enemy that you will encounter in Resident Evil 2. Mr. X. Mr. X isn't just another enemy in the game that you can take out cautiously, no. He is the epitome of fear and changes the game entirely. What I love about his entrance is that it's not spectacular and glorious, but the fact that it just happens. After you've gotten comfortable with the core gameplay and you finally have an idea of the RPD layout, things seem to be going smoothly, and then bam, there he is.
Jesus Christ!
The Tyrant is a wrench thrown into your game plan as you quickly scrap together an idea of what to do next. The presentation is effective, as right away you know that this isn't an ordinary enemy, and most people who encounter him for the first time don't even bother to shoot at him because they know it would just be pointless. He walks with purpose and hits incredibly hard, and it's your job to navigate around this familiar area while constantly avoiding an unfamiliar foe. I remember going back to the main hall for the first time thinking I was safe because no zombies had been allowed to enter before, but the Tyrant's music kept playing. I initially thought it was a glitch, but then I turned around and realized this is no longer a safe zone. When Mr. X is around, RE2 transforms into a whole new game. As soon as he enters, you're forced to act urgently, but still have to maintain your quick thinking if you want to survive. His music that plays as he's hunting you is terrifying, and your heart fills with anxiety as you hear those boots hit the floor close by. He doesn't play by the rules, and his whereabouts are entirely unpredictable. Even though he's large, there are moments where he could take you by complete surprise.
Listen, I'm sorry.
Surprise, motherfucker!
It may sound annoying to some people, but he is anything but. The challenge of having to navigate around the map and avoid Mr. X at all costs is relentlessly fun and horrifying at the same time. You can never be too comfortable as he lurks around the police station, and there are endless amounts of scenarios that people can find themselves in where the Tyrant preys upon you. Aside from the core gameplay, I mentioned earlier that this game runs on the RE engine, and man, Capcom outdid themselves when it comes to the look of Resident Evil 2. This game looks beautiful, from the graphics to the lighting to the physics. Everything is so well polished and damn near perfect. Each character's facial capture is better than most games released today, as you can see the pores, wrinkles, and facial hair move accordingly when they talk. The rain and wind effects outside the police station are breathtaking and enhance the horrific liminal atmosphere inside the RPD. The lighting feels natural and is used artfully to create some immaculate scenes that match well with the overall emotion. The gore that appears is absolutely insane. It is heavily detailed, and they make sure that you can see every little intricate crevice that is involved.
Oh god. Oh god.
It's so gross, yet so wonderful at the same time. Not as gross as the burger at the start of the game though, seriously. What was that? There are scarce moments where the faces can look a little uncanny, but for the most part the game is well optimized, and after multiple playthroughs, there aren't many glitches or visual errors I can remember encountering. The RE engine is genuinely lightning in a bottle. The story of Resident Evil 2 is nothing short of awesome. Although we have the original RE2 to thank for the core storyline, it seems that not only was it translated well to the modern age, but the remake has taken liberties of its own. As someone who's only played the remake, I think the story stands well on its own without having to go back in time and play the original and Resident Evil 1. Both of our protagonists are incredibly likable, and the game does a good job of showing you what our characters stand for without blatantly shoving it in your face.
Wait, you're a cop?
Yeah, Leon Kennedy. You are?
Claire. Claire Redfield.
Leon's story starts as he travels to Raccoon City, ready to report on his first day as a police officer, but unfortunately he is running late. By the time he gets to the station, almost everyone is dead. The last person standing is Leon's lieutenant, Marvin Branagh. Marvin appears in both Leon and Claire's A scenario, but after the release of RE4 remake, it's clear that Marvin is meant for Leon's campaign. When you pick Claire's story, her reason for traveling to the RPD is to look for her brother, Chris Redfield, who was a member of the Special Tactics and Rescue Service and was one of the two protagonists in Resident Evil 1. Both stories feature intriguing secondary characters who you can actually play as in a brief section of the story. Leon encounters a supposed FBI operative named Ada Wong, and Claire meets a young girl named Sherry Birkin. These two characters are a perfect match for each of the protagonist's personalities and help build towards the bigger plot of the story. Ada at first seems to be incredibly helpful and a perfect match for Leon, as they both want to do whatever they can to stop the Umbrella Corporation for unleashing the G-Virus.
My mission is to take down Umbrella's entire operation. We may not make it out.
Spoiler alert, but it turns out that Ada isn't FBI and used Leon as she just wants the G-Virus for a private buyer. Although she turns on Leon, their dynamic is only enhanced, as Leon is someone righteous but very naive, and Ada uses that to her advantage. But you can tell that something stuck with her during her time with Leon. She may be very selfish, and although she stands opposite of Leon, she doesn't see him as an enemy. Instead, they're just two people with their own intentions.
And you shoot me. But I don't think you can.
When Claire finds Sherry, she is separated from her mother, who we later find out is a scientist for Umbrella, Annette Birkin. Claire consistently tries to ensure Sherry's safety, even after finding Annette, because it's clear that she cares more about her job than her actual child. Yeah, let me tell you, Annette isn't winning any Mother of the Year awards here.
I was scared. Those things were everywhere, and
You should have called the police. That's what we taught you.
I did, but nobody came, and you didn't answer your phone, so...
Sherry, I don't have time for this.
What the fuck? When playing through this story as Claire, they greatly showcase the many different sides of her. She is strong and confident, but also sweet and caring, and isn't afraid to stand up to people like Annette when things get tough.
Sherry's been implanted. She can't be saved.
Are you fucking kidding me? You're her mother. Get in here!
Claire is baffled that someone could seem so negligent of their family member, let alone their daughter, when Claire is someone who traveled all the way to Raccoon City in the middle of a biological catastrophe just to see if her brother was okay. We even come across the RPD police chief, Brian Irons, who is a deranged psychopath and an imposing man who kidnapped Sherry. Throughout the whole interaction, Claire may be afraid, but she doesn't back down and shows immense bravery.
What are you gonna do to her?
None of your fucking business.
If you hurt her, I swear to God, my brother is stars and
I never felt like her actions or emotions were contrived, as she's incredibly well written and someone you could relate or look up to.
I don't know what I'd do without you.
Are you kidding me? You were doing just fine without me, until I came along and got you all sorts of trouble.
Many people think that the personality shift for Leon from this game to RE4 may seem out of nowhere, but I think it's laid out plain as day. He becomes a police officer because he wants to help as many people as possible, and once he learns of the zombie outbreak, he holds on hope that there are people still alive at the station, only to find out that there's no one left. He tries to save a fellow officer, but he is brutally ripped apart in front of him, and the last person left standing is already doomed. Marvin is a man who saved Leon's life, but Leon can't do the same and is forced to leave him. What makes it worse is that while reading notes, you can find out that his fellow officers were excited to meet Leon, but were all killed before he ever got to meet them. Even if he can't save people from dying, he feels that the uniform he wears is supposed to inspire hope, but when confronted by grieving civilians like Kendo, he doesn't have the answers and feels helpless as he's unable to provide comfort.
You're a cop. You're supposed to know something. How did this happen? Huh? She was a sweet little angel.
Then when he finally has a purpose to take down Umbrella, provide some sort of closure to grieving families, and save countless more lives, he's betrayed. Not to mention that he once again isn't able to save Ada and she dies in front of him. All of the work he's done through the night is for nothing in his eyes. Everything that Leon stands for is challenged heavily and torn down. So of course he becomes depressed by the time RE4 comes around. I believe that the only reason Leon was able to cope with all the events in Raccoon City was the fact that he was able to find Claire and Sherry at the end of it all.
Leon?
Hey. We made it.
Just like I said we would.
Even though you may be satisfied with one playthrough, it is gratifying to do both. Both stories have you uncover a plot involving William Birkin and his transformation into a G-infected monster. You learn along the way that he was the one who created the G-virus, and that when he tried to walk away with his creation, he was gunned down. With no other chance of survival, William injects himself with the virus and constantly mutates throughout the game. It's a very intriguing and horrific story to follow, but only when you play through both stories can you see the complete picture.
She is my creation!
This happens often when you'll hear something in Leon's story and just brush it off, but it actually comes as a significant piece in Claire's. Mentions of Chief Irons and a sketchy orphanage don't seem like much, but when playing as Claire, you learn that this orphanage is a front for Umbrella to use kids as test subjects. There's also a wide variety of notes you'll find along the way that can contain extra lore for the universe or something simple to explain the conditions of a surrounding area. If you've ever wondered why the police station is so massive, there's a note detailing that the building used to be an art museum, hence the many statues and paintings. Although it's not required to play Resident Evil 1, the notes I found built so much intrigue and made me want to go back and learn more. Leon can find a note from Chris Redfield explaining to Claire that he's okay, but the way it's written makes him sound like a total douche. So I thought that's just how Chris was. But if Claire finds the note, then she'll say that it sounds nothing like Chris.
This does not sound like Chris.
If you go through this game without reading anything, then I just feel bad because the notes add so much to the story and give insight to many of the characters. I already thought Chief Irons was messed up, but then I found a note detailing how he... I know these notes are a staple in the Resident Evil series, but they showcase the incredible amount of effort that the Capcom team puts into it. The performances delivered by the cast are incredible, and although there are a few lines that sound awkward from time to time,
Who's this?
This is Sherry.
Okay.
the majority of the dialogue feels natural, and the cast does well at properly conveying the emotions of their characters. Hell, the scene with Kendo delaying the inevitable death of his daughter almost brought me to tears the first time I played, and he only has 2 minutes of screen time.
Mommy.
I was sleeping, honey. Okay? And I'm gonna put you to bed too, okay?
I also appreciate this game for recording different takes of dialogue for scenarios where Claire and Leon talk to the same person. It would have been easy to cop out and have Marvin refer to the player without using identifiable nouns, as most games do, but no. Marvin tells both characters essentially the same thing, but his tone as he talks to Leon feels like someone talking to their subordinate. And while talking to Claire, his tone shifts to respectful as he's talking to a family member of one of the best police officers in the station.
We can get you to a hospital.
No, I am not the priority here.
Lieutenant, I'm not just gonna leave you here.
I'm giving you an order, rookie. You save yourself first. I'd come with you, but I'd just slow you down.
Hey, we should probably get you to a hospital.
Oh, forget about me. I can take care of myself.
No, don't be ridiculous. You're gonna need some help.
Listen, Claire. Save yourself. So you can see your brother again. Now, you'll need this.
I can't take him.
Stop. And don't make my mistake. If you see one of those things, uniform or not, you do not hesitate. Now, you'll probably need this.
No, I'm not taking that. You're gonna...
Shh. And be careful. If you see one of those things, no matter who they were, you can't hesitate.
It's a subtle detail, but it shows the passion that was put into this game. The only real gripe I have with the storytelling aspect is that the canon can get quite confusing. Both stories are supposed to be happening simultaneously, but events happen in both campaigns that could not possibly work together. Leon and Claire share 3 of the same boss fights. They both go to most of the same sections, and you are constantly thinking about how some of this doesn't make sense. You can infer what things are actually canon, such as Claire's time with Sherry and Leon's story with Ada, but some things just don't work. Mr. X is present until the end of Leon's story, but gets absolutely demolished halfway into Claire's. It's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, but it can definitely be jarring to think about what did and did not happen. There's also a second run of the story that you can play through that is shorter and changes certain gameplay aspects, such as Mr. X showing up right away, but there's not many changes in terms of story or cutscenes. It's fun to play if you want to speed run through the story and switch things up a bit, but it's not really for me. Apparently in the original RE2, these B scenarios act as a 3rd and 4th scenario for Claire and Leon, so I'm pretty excited to go back to the original and experience and see how different these 3rd and 4th scenarios are. Apparently the B scenarios were treated as an afterthought because they weren't originally planned for the game, but after so much outcry from the fans, they eventually added it. So again, it's there if you want to do it, but yeah, not much changes. Aside from the actual story itself, playing through it is just as wonderful. The puzzles you solve are fun, and I enjoy the Metroidvania style gameplay as you try to escape the RPD. I like coming across these safes where you have to click the correct button combination to open it, or the clock tower section where you have to rearrange the cogs. I had a fun time with the majority of puzzles in this game, and it felt like they were crafted wonderfully. The game doesn't hold your hand and throws you into this area, leaving you to figure it out. It provides a rewarding experience to maneuver through this labyrinth with nothing but your wit and your skill. The game encourages you to explore, offering a non-linear experience where no 2 playthroughs will be exactly the same, and allows the horror to still live on no matter how many playthroughs you've done. The pacing is handled for the most part exceptionally well. Most of the areas don't overstay their welcome, and I love the fact that you could be really far into this game yet still be able to come back to the beginning, and to do it all without any loading screens. The RPD is so special that it may just be my favorite location in the franchise. Not many parts of the station look similar, so it's very easy to learn the map with notable areas that remind you of your location. There are a lot of dark corridors inside the RPD. Still, it never gets unbearable as the lighting is utilized incredibly, letting you see enough to know where you're going, but still scary enough to make you wonder if anything could pop out. I would say that the only area of the game where the pacing is slightly killed is the sewers. The look of the sewer is incredible, and the idea of anything popping out of the water to attack you is terrifying, but it's more so the layout of the area that is a problem. What makes the RPD so great is that after a while, you won't need a map to know where you're going because most of the area is instantly recognizable, and it makes for a smooth experience, but the sewers are the complete opposite. While it is a horrifying location to maneuver around in, it's also very confusing, as there are a few notable areas to pinpoint yourself at, and most of it looks the same. I've played through this game 6 times, yet if you held a gun to my head and told me to draw a layout that somewhat resembles the sewers, then I would just take the gun and pull the trigger myself. It can also be an unrelenting experience for new players as you encounter so many G-monsters. While they provide a good amount of challenge, I feel like they threw way too many into one area and are almost entirely unavoidable. I know the whole point of the game is to stay on your toes and plan accordingly, but dealing with that many monsters for the first time is a pain, especially paired with the unfamiliarity of the area. I feel like this area had the potential to be great, and there are some enjoyable aspects to it. I really like the chess piece puzzle you have to complete and the constant anxiety I felt walking around the tunnels, but the layout is too complex. Besides that, the final big area of the game that you visit is Umbrella Laboratory. I think it's a nice change of pace for the final act, as it's not so much terrifying as it is challenging. Seeing such an empty, massive area is very jarring, and the visual storytelling is what sells this section for me. The fact that you're inside the belly of the beast that caused all of this, but you can see that they are just as helpless as their victims. All the employees are dead, and you could view it as justice served, but also the fact of how dangerous the virus really is if the creators couldn't get it under control. You eventually blow it all to smithereens in a remarkable self-destruct sequence where you get to escape the facility while avoiding many creatures, and this is the cherry on top of the cake where the game rewards you with some fast-paced high action after taking it slow and playing it smart for the majority of the game. Throughout the game, both protagonists encounter 4 boss fights, with 3 being the same for both Claire and Leon. You get 3 boss fights with William Birkin, each time more mutated than the last. The first two fights are similar, where you have to damage William's extra eye enough times for him to go down, and those sections work well for the pace of the game as you get a chance to utilize the skills and firearms you've earned along the way. But the third one is pretty goddamn fun. William has mutated into this unrecognizable Hulk-sized monster, and you have to try and avoid his relentless leaps and swings across a smaller play area. The surrounding environment progressively gets more destroyed as the fight continues, and he doesn't hold back. He's very aggressive and hurls massive exploding tanks at you faster than you can say bingo. The fourth boss fight occurs while escaping the self-destruction of Umbrella and is different depending on who you're playing as. Leon has to battle a mutated Mr. X, and let me just say that the Tyrant was hiding some absolute pecs underneath that trench coat. This fight is okay. You just shoot at his heart a bunch of times while avoiding him in a very tiny elevator. I wish that the play area wasn't so small because it is tough to avoid Mr. X and he doesn't allow for much breathing room, and it only gets smaller as time goes on. They eventually give you a rocket launcher to finish the job, but you already did 99% of the work, so what's the point? Claire's final boss is infinitely better though, as she has to battle an even further mutated William Birkin, but she gets to use a badass minigun for the entire duration of the fight. The setting is insanely climactic as you ride along a train car down an elevator and you shoot William non-stop as he jumps all over the place and chases you down. Jesus Christ, step the fuck up, Leon. If you complete both Leon and Claire's campaigns, you get treated to a secret boss fight in which you fight William one final time and unlock the game's true ending. The ending is sweet as we see our protagonist being able to bond after all the horrific events that they just faced, yet still determined to fight against any evil that might be looming. It also lets us know that the zombie outbreak wasn't a worldwide catastrophe and it was strictly contained in Raccoon City, which I was absolutely confused about because the first time I played this game, I thought that it was a total zombie apocalypse, and I was confused on how there's still some sort of infrastructure, but this true ending helped a lot. I love that even though the game's tone is incredibly dark and the damage that Umbrella caused is done, our protagonist can find the light at the end of the tunnel, which is each other.
We can get a puppy.
Puppy.
And a parrot.
Perfect.
I always wanted pets, but my mom said they're too messy.
Next up on this boring Wednesday is a song to get your blood pumping.
Just some extra thoughts before we get into our conclusion here, but this game is surprisingly one with so many hours of replayability that you can lose yourself in. Like I mentioned before, you can play through the story 4 times with both A and B scenarios, but there are also many challenges that the game presents to you, like collectibles, or not using the item box for an entire playthrough, or not using a healing item for the entire playthrough. And I think all of that stuff is really enticing and fun to do, especially paired with the great pacing for the most part besides sewers. It doesn't make it boring, especially paired with the versatility and the variety you can find yourself with the gameplay. Not to mention that after you get done with a playthrough, the game grades you on your performance, how many saves you did, how much time you completed it in, and I'm totally not talking about this to flex that I got an S+ on both playthroughs. You could do these challenges and try to get these different grades for different difficulties. So there's the easy, the standard, and hardcore. And let me tell you, hardcore ain't just a word. It's actually fucking difficult, man. Zombies are faster and eat more damage, so if you thought they were bullet sponges before, you ain't even prepared, son. As well as the fact that there's no autosave and you can only save through finding these ink strips like the original Resident Evil games, which I thought is not only a cool mechanic to add difficulty, but also a fun little callback. What really surprised me is that this game has extra modes, like the Ghost Survivors, which are little what-if scenarios for different obscure characters in the story. As if the game wasn't already stacked with hours upon hours of replayability, you could just go and do these extra modes, which are kind of difficult. Specifically the 4th survivor one, even though it's relentless, it is fun as hell playing through Hunk and going through the entire map, just mowing down zombies and using whatever tools you can, having to deal with every enemy possible, including Mr. X. It's fucking annoying, but it's fun as hell. Yeah, I'll be honest, the main reason I played through the 4th survivor though is to unlock the Tofu survivor, where you play as a piece of tofu, which I guess is a callback to how Capcom tested the original Resident Evil 2's collision detection with a white block, and they just thought it would look like tofu, so now we have a tofu mode in Resident Evil 2. Did they have to add it? No, but that's exactly my point, that we just get fun modes because Capcom does it for the love of the game, man, and for our enjoyment. So Capcom, well done. If you're trying to get someone into the Resident Evil universe, I would definitely say that Resident Evil 2 is the one to recommend to them. Not only does it offer a modern spin on the original Resident Evil 2 with easier, more quality of life mechanics, but also it offers a great story, really likable characters, and offers little lore tidbits to other events that occurred within the Resident Evil universe. I found that to be very enticing to go back and learn all these different characters, stories through playing the other Resident Evil games. And there's a hell of a lot of Resident Evil games besides the main 8, and there's spin-offs, and Jesus, dude. But the liberties that were taken here with different character designs and different locations, I feel like they are just as iconic as people would deem the original Resident Evil 2 to be. When you walk into that police station for the first time, you instantly know that this location is special and stands out to you. And they did an incredible job with the presentation of the horror. You could literally go back and watch my playthrough from a year ago, and you could tell how scared I was traversing the halls of the RPD, not knowing what was coming next. And a big part of that was how they utilized and crafted the RE engine, which, like I said, is one of the best engines that I've ever seen in a video game. And they only continue to expand and make this engine look even more great across the many different games. Honestly, there's not many gripes I can find with this game at all. I'm sure if I had played the original first and then the remake, maybe I would have found some, but most videos I watch about people talking about RE2 were ones that played the original burst years before. And I think it's interesting that I have the position to do the opposite, like an outsider's perspective of doing the remake first and then going back to the original just to see how that is. But damn, dude, for the most part, Resident Evil 2 is an incredible experience. And while I can't grade it as a remake for you right now, I am damn near tempted to call this game a horrifying masterpiece. What do you think? How does Resident Evil 2 Remake stack up in your eyes? Do you think it's as good as the original, better, or lacking in some departments? Let me know down below. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, consider subscribing. I'm looking forward to playing the original later this year, if they ever specify the date. Capcom, come on. If you want to see any more Resident Evil content on the channel, I would much appreciate your feedback. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day. Drink some water. Take care. Peace.